Welcome to another edition of Ask Isaiah. It's your host Isaiah Rhodes, and today will be Judgment Day for the Philadelphia 76ers. Over the last couple of games, I've been semi-depressed. I'm not gonna lie. Considering the season that we've had as a Sixer fan, and as the Sixer organization, a lot of the years overcome of putrid performances year after year. This particular year, with all of the expectations that came after a 16-game winning streak to end the regular season, to beat Miami in the first round and just exponentially raise expectations with a young core of Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and surrounding shooters. I think to go down 3-0 to Boston in the fashion that the Sixers have gone down, it really put a hamper on any light that the Sixers had going forward just for a while. I think Ben Simmons' performance in Game 2 and then the turnovers down the stretch of Game 3 really put a damper on a great season. But I think for Game 4, the way that the Sixers performed, specifically Joel Embiid and TJ McConnell, really put the Sixers in position to try to make a run at this thing. Going to Boston will be difficult. When I tell you that Brad Stevens is one of the best coaches in the league right now, that's not an understatement. He is an exceptional coach, and I think it's a travesty that he didn't get any first place votes for Coach of the Year this year. Congratulations to Dwayne Casey on an exceptional regular season, 59 wins, franchise record for the Toronto Raptors, the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference overall, and the second best record in the NBA. But no matter what happened in the regular season, nobody believed the Toronto Raptors. And that just goes to show you that they literally don't have any franchise players. And no disrespect to DeMar DeRozan, he's the $138 million man, but he's a burglar. And when you put him in high pressure situations, him and Kyle Lowry, they don't perform. And specifically with DeMar DeRozan, and I don't want to take away from his game because he has tried his best to round out his game. He's tried to get better with 3-pointers. He's tried to maximize the mid-range. That was always his specialty. And he's tried to be the face of a franchise, but he's not a number 1 guy. He's probably a number 3 guy on a championship team, and on a great team, he could probably be a number two guy, but he's not a number 1 guy. And the last 3 years against LeBron James, he's completely unraveled when it came to going at the best player in the league. Now, there's players in the NBA who are not better than LeBron James, but when they go against him, they give their absolute maximum effort. And I feel like for DeMar, in pockets of this series, not just, Game 3 and Game 4, but in pockets of Game 1 when the Cavs are coming back, 7 minutes go by in the third quarter, you don't take a shot. That's unacceptable. For Kyle Lowry, he's in a similar vein. He's maxed out his career and found a home in Toronto. So when his career is over, he could say, he was a solid point guard in this league. He's an all-star. He's a, maximum effort player. And in terms of a point guard, there's not many point guards in this league, in this stacked league of point guards that can say they're better than Kyle Lowry on paper or in a regular season. But put him in high-pressure situations, and Kyle Lowry continuously folds. So for me, when I look at Toronto, to be led by those 2 players, you're already fighting an uphill battle. Now, for what LeBron James has done over the last 3 weeks, I'm at a loss for words. I know early in the season, I spoke about how I was frustrated with LeBron's effort and form of leadership. And as the ship was sinking in Cleveland and everyone was panicking, including myself, I just was really frustrated with the year in and year out doldrums of LeBron being passive-aggressive in terms of leadership and then having to constantly give him the benefit of the doubt to get to the finals and lose. But no matter what he does in the regular season, no matter how can I say this? No matter how often LeBron will go in these pockets where he's performing well but not lifting up his team on a consistent effort defensively, or he's trying to, pass the buck in certain situations. When it comes to high pressure moments of the playoffs, there's no one better than LeBron James in the league right now. Now we could speak to his playoff record or finals record, I should say, 3-5, but it's really 3-4 with an asterisk. To be 22 years old and get a team to the finals, that is, you can't even comprehend that. And then to go against the Spurs team in the height of their franchise dynasty, getting their fourth championship against Cleveland, to see LeBron get that team to the finals and lose, that's unfortunate, but it's an accomplishment in itself. The only finals that I will ever, chastise LeBron or critique LeBron for his performance is Dallas. He's always going to be chasing that finals because on paper, that Heat team should have won. LeBron is the best player in the series. And as great as Dallas was in terms of a team collective effort, they couldn't overcome the best player in the world being the best player in the world. But he didn't play like the best player in the world. So that finals flaw will always be on his resume. But we cannot deny. And here's the thing, and I always speak about this in my group chats with my friends, or I'm breaking it down to anybody. LeBron James is at a point in his basketball mastery that he should feel like nobody that has ever played this game is better than him. I think that Michael Jordan is similar to Michael Jackson in terms of, just his overall influence, the aura of his music, the overall of Michael Jordan's game. It transcends what he actually does. And I think for Michael Jordan specifically, no one can hold a candle to his impact on the game. It transcends and supersedes anything. We're not just talking basketball. We're talking about music and just financial gains of anything that ever touches his circumference at the peak of his powers, right? But LeBron James is in that realm specifically with how he's taken on ownership and tried to implement that and influence future athletes to pursue that. He is of that ilk for this generation of players. And not only that, he's been doing this since he was 18 years old at the professional level. He's been in the public eye since he was 15, 16 years old and has carried himself in the light of a Michael Jordan type career from that young age. And he's done so at peak performance year in and year out. He has evolved his game in so many different facets. You can put 3 different stages of his career up against anyone, and it will still be a Hall of Fame level career. And it's been nonstop. There has not been a learning curve break or learning curve stretch where he struggled individually and couldn't figure it out. From 18 years old, he was that level. And I feel like for LeBron, he should feel like he's Prince. Prince, Rogers Nelson shouldn't feel inferior to Michael Jackson at all. Michael Jackson has Thriller, Prince has Purple Rain. And they equally have sold, well, Michael Jackson has sold more records, but for Prince, he's sold hundreds of millions of records as well. He's owned his own masters. He's the person that has took on causes for artistries, for artists and ownership, owning all of your rights and going against record labels and trying to, just influence musicians to take pride and try to pursue other things outside of being a pet or a monkey. He's always tried to push that. And for LeBron, he's done that for the athlete as well. When you look at what LeBron has done in terms of how he's maximized his game with multiple rosters and different coaches. For Michael Jordan, he won 6 championships with Phil Jackson. For what LeBron has done with 3 different stages of his career, he played with Mike Brown, got him to a final. They didn't win, but he got him to a final. Eric Spoelstra. Now, Spo has become a great coach, but when he was with the Big 3 in Miami, he was an unproven coach. He was able to round out his career with 2 championships led by LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh, and to go to Cleveland, get David Blatt, a coach who never coached in the NBA, get him to a final while not understanding the NBA game at all. To get him to a final, to get 2 games off of a 67-win Warriors team, and then the next year go bring Ty Lue to a championship win that championship, come back from 3-1 against a 73-9 Warriors team, that in itself shows you the level of performance that LeBron has. He's similar to Peyton Manning in that respect. Peyton can go and become the system no matter where he's at, whether it's with Caldwell, Dungy, Fox. He can win anywhere, and that's what LeBron has done. Now, what LeBron has done with this particular roster, after some trades, the Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder thing didn't work out. He had to get rid of those guys, get a lot younger, Jordan Clarkson, Larry Nance, Ronnie Hood. Those guys struggled against Indiana. That's why that Indiana series went as long as it did, because, one, LeBron had to figure out how he can play with these guys. They had to go through playoff-type intensity, figure out how to win. Kyle Korver has come on strong over the last 5 games, and that has propelled LeBron in terms of a consistent 2-3 guy. And then Kevin Love. Kevin Love has gone through spells of inconsistency, but in these last, I should say, and that's the one thing Toronto did that they really struggled with. I mean, Indiana forced LeBron to say, okay, beat us by yourself. And he did, but it came at a cost. They lost 3 games. But what Toronto did, the worst thing they could have did was allow Cleveland to win when LeBron played his worst game in the playoffs. To go 12 for 30, to struggle shooting-wise, not only from the field, but from the free throw line, the three-point line, all around just a putrid shooting performance. To lose that game in OT in the fashion in which they did, it took their mental and emotional toll on them, and they couldn't recover. Now, that only built and enhanced the confidence of the role players. LeBron's always going to be LeBron, and he said such post-game when he said, I played my worst game of the playoffs, and we still were able to win. Toronto knew right then it was over because LeBron was never going to play that bad again. But Kevin Love to play as well as he did, Kyle Korver to shoot as well as he did, J.R. Smith to make consistent shots in the fashion of which he did, Tristan Thompson coming into the game, providing energy, negating what Valanciunas was doing. That only enhanced what Cleveland was trying to do going forward. And going into the next series, whether it be Philadelphia or whether it be Boston, these role players have the confidence to know that they can compete with anybody. They just dispatched of the number 1 seed in the entire conference and the number 2 team record-wise in the league. The role players contributed to that. George Hill came on strong in Game 4. As I mentioned, Kevin Love and Kyle Korver. Then you have Jeff Green to complement everything else. When you have that level of performance from your role players, that only can lead to a momentum shift that can lead to a championship. I'm not saying Cleveland will win the championship this year, but they will perform a lot better than many expected. When you saw what Indiana did, the reason why they performed to the level that they did is because they attacked from all angles. They were so young that they didn't know what they didn't know, and that helped them in their fight against LeBron. LeBron had to gauge what Ronnie Hood could do, what Larry Nance could do, to really see how they could perform. But when it came time to win, LeBron always put forth the effort to maximize, and that's why he's arguably the greatest player of all time. I'm of the opinion that if LeBron wins a championship in the next 2 years, whether it be this year or next year, I think he's the greatest player of all time. He's not better than Michael Jordan, but this is my opinion. I don't think he's better than Michael Jordan, but I think he has the opportunity to be greater than Michael Jordan. And if I'm LeBron James, I shouldn't feel like Michael Jordan is better than me because of the longevity that I've played with, the durability that I've played with, and when you consider the franchises that he's had to carry and the level of competition that he's had to face in the finals, you can put that up against anybody's resume, and he should stand tall against everybody. Now, going forward, if he comes to Philadelphia, I'm all in for that. I think if he wins a championship in Philadelphia, that in itself puts him on top of Mount Rushmore. But I just feel like to win in Cleveland and then go to another city and win another championship should only, add a trump card that that Michael Jordan doesn't have. Michael Jordan has 2 3-peats, yes, but he's had it with relatively a similar core. But when you look at what LeBron has done, he's shifted cores on teams, multiple coaches, and still, yet and still has them at a relevant, competitive level, competitive championship level. And when you look at a franchise player, I've always said uh, Tim Duncan was the greatest franchise player of all time because of what San Antonio was able to do for 20 years, him being at the core of it as the anchor. But I think LeBron James is arguably the greatest franchise player of all time. After what I've seen the last 3 years with this Cleveland team, I think he's the greatest franchise player of all time because he can go through multiple franchises at different stages of his career and propel them. To look at that first Cleveland roster was the Jonas Orgauskas and Drew Gooden and Bobby Gibson and Ira Newble and Larry Hughes and Eric Snow. To get that team to the finals in itself is amazing. You can't even think you can't even think to critique a player at 22 years old to do that, and not only be 22, but he was in his second playoff period. He hadn't gone 5 years and then finally got over the hump. He was in his second playoff ever. So for him to be 15 years in, to go to his 10th Eastern Conference Final in 12 years, to dominate the conference to the level that he has, that in itself is GOAT territory. And to be this close to Michael Jordan at 33 years old with a whole bunch left in the tank, you can only imagine where this is going to go. And I'm here to say that I was wrong. I admit it, and I'm grateful to be watching the game at this level, at this age, and to appreciate it, because I truly do. I truly appreciate it. Now, I mentioned the Sixers and their fight to try to get to the Eastern Conference Finals, but the Western Conference is stacked and it's finished. The Houston Rockets will be facing the Golden State Warriors, and this was a head-on collision from the beginning. Daryl Morey, the GM of the Houston Rockets, has said on many occasions that he's trying to build his roster to beat the Golden State Warriors, and I think for 2017-18, he finally has a algorithm for how he wants to do it. You have the likes of MVP in the making, James Harden. 2018 is finally his year. He will be the MVP. You traded for Chris Paul, got him in a position to match a level of urgency that he needed. I think on all the teams that he's been on as the best player, he was the most desperate to win, and I think the players around him couldn't match his intensity, and that's why in the beginning he's always uplifting for the franchise, but those around him, after a while, they come to resent him. I think for Houston in his first year, it matched the urgency. You have James Harden, who came off a tough finish in 2017 to San Antonio. He was hungry to right some wrongs. Chris Paul had never been to a Western Conference Finals in his life. He finally had an opportunity to do so with this Rockets team, and they only elevated from what they did last year. Then you put players around them that can fit their skill sets, nothing but shooters, and athletic defensive players. I think last year, especially with Ryan Anderson playing, you couldn't really be as aggressive defensively as this team is. I will never say PJ Tucker is a great defensive player. That's just not in my nature. I've never seen PJ Tucker lock down anyone. But what I will say is that he put forth the effort to do so, and that's what's necessary. Trevor Ariza, a great defender. Luke Baumute, a great defender. So you already have those wing players. And then the breakout star of this team, and truly the X factor of every series that they've played in, has been Clint Capella. For him to outplay All-Star Karl Anthony Towns, for him to outplay Rudy Gobert, who just had an exceptional series against Oklahoma City, to truly negate all of his defensive impact, shows you what Clint Capella is to this Houston Rockets team. And I think for him specifically, he's not one of the best bigs in the league in terms of skill set or even just being a franchise type big. But I think for what Houston does and what they ask him to do, he can arguably be the best big in any series he plays in because he knows his role. He knows it, and he plays it to the best of his ability. He runs, he plays exceptional defense, and not only that, as his confidence grows, he takes more of an onus to be a animal on the inside in terms of dominating. And I feel like in this particular series with Golden State, he will be an X factor again. But Golden State has their own X factor that they rarely play, and that's JaVale McGee. JaVale McGee can do the same things that Clint Capella does. And not only that, I think the efficiency with what Golden State plays with in terms of how they get their threes compared to what Houston does. Houston plays in volume of threes. Golden State can do that as well, but they have the best shooters, period, in Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. And I think that will always play in their favor. When they need to get efficient shots, you can always play off of those guys. And I think for Steph Curry, as he gets back in the rhythm coming off an injury, I think Golden State will only play at higher levels. But they're going to have to go against a Thanos-type player in LeBron James. And that Thanos reference goes to the Avengers Infinity Wars. If you haven't seen it, go see it. I think Thanos is the greatest villain of all time. I've had time to think about it, and I feel like although he was a villain in this particular movie, all of his efforts came with a purpose. And when you have a player like LeBron James trying to win his 4th championship and going potentially to his 9th final, this only lends itself to his purpose. He's trying to be the best player of all. He's trying to be the greatest player of all time. And this championship, whether it be this year or next year, will only provide more trump cards for a player that's going to break almost every statistical record possible. In the next 5 years, he'll probably be in the top 10 in assists, #1 scorer, and top 25 in rebounding. And to have that all-around performance at that level for an extended period of time, you can only argue that he's the greatest player of all time. Anything less than that, well, you would be put in the hater category, which I'm not a hater, so I can't do it. But that's just what's going on tonight, 8 p.m. Make sure you tune in to Celtics Sixers Game 5. 76ers trying to stay alive. Celtics trying to get to the Eastern Conference Finals for the 2nd consecutive years, which would be a huge accomplishment considering all the injuries that they faced this season. Kyrie Irving, Gordon Hayward, Marcus Smart, and many others. So tune in tonight, TNT, 8 p.m. This is Ask Isaiah. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, give views, comment, everything. Over and out.